All right. Hi, everybody. How's it going? Super happy to be here. I just came to India for the first time ever 2 days ago. Awesome place. It was a really long flight. I live in San Francisco. It took a way longer time than I thought. Everyone's been really nice. I've met a lot of really interesting people. There's been some really good speakers. I got a chance, like my first day here, to go to an Indian wedding. It was awesome. Really crazy. Got really drunk. It was fun. It was a really good time. So super happy to talk about SEO, social, and content marketing, and some of the convergence there. Where do I point this? Who is this guy? So my name's Tommy Griffith. I manage search engine optimization at PayPal, a tiny little online payment company that you might have heard of. We're based in San Jose, California. We were acquired by eBay more than a decade ago. I've been at PayPal for about 2 years. It's been really cool. It's been really interesting. I do right now what's called enterprise SEO. So it's very different from what I used to do in the past, which is search engine optimization for smaller sites, my own blog, stuff like that. It's a very different animal. Prior to that, I worked at a digital marketing agency in Singapore. I was managing most of the SEM campaigns for hotels. And before that, I had started a startup in medical tourism, in the medical tourism industry with a friend of mine in Taiwan. And that failed miserably, but was a really interesting experience. And that was actually where I learned a lot of my the internet marketing that I know today. So just a quick summary of what I'll be talking about today. We'll start with what SEO looks like in the modern era and why it's actually more important than ever. I was surprised that there weren't more SEO sessions at this conference, but a lot of people have been coming up to me saying that they're very interested in the topic. So it's good to hear that we have SEO nerds in the building. We'll talk about some of the algorithm updates and the difference between links versus signals. And really more importantly, when we talk about that convergence of the topic, right, it's really the difference between link building versus link earning. So some of you might be SEO experts and you're gonna think this is a little novice, so I'll move through it really quick. But the real takeaway here is that organic search is still a huge piece of the search picture. Now these are huge industry estimates, right? There's really no way to tell what portion of traffic is going to paid versus organic unless you are Google or Bing or any other regional search engine like Yandex or Baidu. But in general, the general rule of thumb we use at PayPal is that there's about a 70-30 split between paid and organic. Now this number is going to vary dramatically depending on what vertical you're in. And Google's doing everything they can, of course, to get more SEM clicks and SEM space, so the landscape changes all the time, the SERP layout changes all the time. Really what industry you're in is contingent upon this, but the rule of thumb we use is about 70-30. And this is another controversial graph as well, but the general rule of thumb of why SEO is important is that clicks are concentrated in the top 5 results. The easy way to think about this, if you remember back in the day, maybe 10 years ago, right, when there were a lot of different types of search engines out there, and user behavior has changed dramatically since then. So if you think about when you did a search in 1999, you weren't depending on the right result being at the top, right, because search engines were in just such a nascent stage. So I don't know how much fragmentation there was in India, but in the US there were a ton of different search engines. We use Excite and Lycos and Hotbot and Alta Vista. And when you were doing a search, you would type in your query, and you were comfortable with going to page 2 or page 3 or page 4, changing your search engine, going to page 2 or page 3 or page 4. You were kind of okay with that behavior. Google has gotten so good at delivering high-quality, relevant results to the top 5 results that now what we do when we don't find our result is we change our search, right? We refine our query. So this idea of query refinement is what makes SEO so important today. A lot of the times if you work with an agency and they're a little bit sneaky, they might say, hey, we have you on page 2 for 50 different keywords. But the reality is because click-through rates are so low, on the second page of search results, you're really still invisible if you're not in the top 5. So this idea of query refinement is what makes SEO so important today. And these algorithms that we follow, they change often. This is a little bit of a dramatic statement. 400 changes a year, might be true, but most of those are unnoticeable to the user. There's a major algorithm update, usually every 1.5 to 2 years, something like that. We're going to talk about some of those a little bit later. But the point is that search engine algorithms are constantly changing in order to stop web manipulation and web spam, and in order to continually deliver relevant results. So there's been 2 major updates over the last year that have really changed the game, and are probably the reason why we're in a session right now called SEO, Social, and Content Marketing. The first one was the Panda update, also known as the Farmer update. So this was back in early 2011. It was actually right when I started at PayPal, and it was basically targeting sites with really low quality content. So one of the buzzwords that was coined at the time was spamdexing. This is when sites would get a large number of URLs that would index for long tail keywords. One of my favorite examples of this was, I was at a conference right after it happened, and I think it was eHow or a similar site. It's ranking number 1 for how to boil water. And the content was, how to boil water. Step 1, turn on your stove. Step 2, boil water. And then it was, covered with ads. And that would be ranking number 1. So Google went out of its way to say, look, this is not good for the user. This is not good for anyone. Let's get rid of them. And so that was really where people said, shoot, we have to actually care about our content now. We can't just what's called designing for search engines. It's dramatically harder to do post-Panda. The next was the Penguin update, and this happened early last year, and this was another pretty significant algorithm change, but it was focusing on off-page optimization or link building. So Google got very good at targeting low-quality links, low-quality link directories. Basically, all the tactics that had worked for a really long time stopped working, and you should look at this in the context of social media signals now. So in the past, you just needed lots of links from different sources, and they didn't necessarily need to be high quality. Now, high quality links are more important, and getting genuine social signals and social engagement is really helpful as well. So the way to think about these 2 algorithm updates, Panda update is your content marketing piece, and the Penguin update is your social media piece. This is I'm going to geek out on you a little bit. This is a really interesting way to sort of set the context before we go any further, is to get back to the basics. One of the really cool things you can do is you can actually go onto Stanford's website and see the thesis that Larry Page and Sergey Brin published, which was the catalyst for Google. It was called Backrub initially when they were first working on it at Stanford. But you can go in and geek out and read the whole thing if you want, but you really don't need to. And I've got here in italics the first sentence of the thesis, and it's right there. In this paper, we present Google, a prototype of a large-scale search engine which makes heavy use of the structure present in hypertext. And I wanted to point this out because if you think about where Google came from relative to all the other search engines that were out there, they basically said, look, search engines, this is the late 90s, they say, search engines suck. How can we make a better one? How can we determine which documents in an index are of higher quality? And they initially said links. Current search engines aren't using links. That's a good indicator of quality. If lots of other documents are linking to one document, that's probably a good document. That was the premise, right? But the point here is that Google didn't set out to say, we want to rank web pages really high that have lots of links. They were trying to say, we want to rank web pages really high that had indicative quality indicators, right? Things that say this is of high quality. And that's kind of where we are today, right? So back in the day, you really needed lots of links from a diversity of sources, and the quality of those sources was sort of in question. So if you had lots of links in the past, you would rank really high. While the fundamental premise hasn't changed, the actual signals have. So we didn't have different levels of social media engagement or really highly refined ways to track usage on websites in the past, but now we do. Links certainly still matter. I'm not saying that links do not help in your rankings. They absolutely do. But the point is that there's a lot of other, I think I called them a garden variety of signals. No, that's on the next slide. But there's a lot of other signals out there. Getting more tweets, getting more Facebook likes, sure, those are obvious. But there's other things, local citations, if you're trying to rank locally in web pages. There's other factors as well. Sentiment analysis. If you have 80 links, but all of those links are appended with the phrases sucks or has bad customer service, there's actually really refined ways that Google's finding out the sentiment of these links. There's a really funny story with a company called Decor My Eyes in New York. Yeah, a couple people nodding. Anyways, this Russian guy in New York had really bad customer service. But he went out of his way to be really horrible to his customers, but he got a lot of links out of it. People would say, oh, this guy was horrible, and he ripped me off this and that, and this is his website, link. And it was actually beneficial to him. But they're getting better at it now. So yeah, and there's other issues as well, over-optimization. The point is that quality signals are still important. They're still very important, but links are becoming a diminished aspect of this. Rand Fishkin is my SEO hero. He's the founder of SEO Moz, and in October they have a segment on SEO Moz called Whiteboard Fridays that are really good. And he had a really good one where he said, stop link building and start link earning. And this was sort of in the post-Penguin era. It's a really good quote, and there's a couple of examples of how to do link earning. And so a lot of people say, well, what do you mean by that? And I think the easy way to think about it is if you put yourself in the shoes of Google, and you put yourself in, from their perspective, right, what are they looking for? What are they trying to do? Google's job is to answer the user's question. And the reason why they're so successful, and the reason why we all use them, and the reason why we all use their umbrella of offerings and products is because they've done a great job at answering our questions. When you Google something, you usually find the right answer. So the best way to think about this is to give your users the answer, right? Think about what your users are asking and develop the answer to that. So that really is what we're talking about when we're talking about content marketing, is thinking about what your users' problems are and developing those answers, right? So creating high quality content and getting these real relevant social signals around that is increasingly important. When I first started PayPal 2 years ago, I remember I kind of went through the whole site and I had this huge list of things that I wanted to fix because there was a lot wrong with it. And I remember sitting down with one of the heads of our info security team and I said, look, I have like these 150 things I want to change. Here's what I want to do, this and that. And I like went through this long list. And I was really excited. And he kind of like laughed a little bit, and he's like, Tommy, I love your ambition, and this is really great, but you have to remember first and foremost that PayPal is a fraud and transaction engine, right? We're not necessarily just a website, and they, TechCrunch came out with an article late last year saying we're doing over 300 million in payment volume a day, right? So there's just a lot of issues around it that we can't. The SEO is oftentimes second, third, or fourth place in terms of priority. And so I had to swallow my pride and understand that a little bit. But PayPal's first, started as an encryption company and has branched out from there. But the focus is starting to change because of some of the, from an SEO perspective, from some of these recent algorithm updates. So one really good example that we've been working on is the Business Resource Center. So this is an example of us identifying a lot of our customers' needs and some of the issues that they have. We've been able to identify this. I work with Adlift, with Prashant and his team there, and they helped us create the Business Resource Center among a bunch of other things. But the fundamental principle here is that our customers have questions, and we're trying to provide answers for them. So this is an example of content marketing that a payments company is trying to manage right now. So we find a couple of different areas where customers have questions, where we can provide really good documentation. If they don't have accounts, we try and get them to sign up, but the focus is on creating really good, high-quality content that people link to and share and can really benefit from. In addition to that, we do embed a lot of our social media presence. While it is also in its kind of nascent stage, we're trying to get better at it, and the focus has been on a lot of our of our recent social media pages. Just over the last 6 months to a year, we've done a lot of really good stuff there. My focus has always been on social media and how it drives SEO rankings, and not really the ROI on social media in and of itself, but how it affects our rankings in search engines. So just a quick summary of what we just talked about. SEO is always going to be important because of query refinement. If you're not number one, you should be aspiring to be number one, and it's really important now. Quality signals have changed from strictly links in the late 90s to a garden variety of different sources. And focusing on earning high-quality link signals is increasingly important. Thank you so much. Prashant, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, we'll probably take it. Hi, everyone. My name is Prashant Puri. I run a search marketing firm called Adlift, and I will be talking today about SEO and how your overall SEO strategy fits in with your content and social strategies. So a little bit about us. We're primarily an SEO firm. We do a little bit of PPC also, but today we manage close to 75 million unique visits on a monthly basis globally. We work across the board with both Fortune 500 companies like eBay, PayPal, Barnes & Noble, Nook, along with a lot of startups recently, just helping them really boost their SEO traffic. On the board of a number of advisory panels, SMX, AdTech, just helps us take a pretty proactive approach on SEO, knowing when these updates are happening before they actually happen, and then advising clients with that. So just diving straight into content and SEO. Overall, as Tommy mentioned, we're no longer in sort of the 2004, 2005 phase where you built a bunch of links, did a little bit of SEO, and there you go. In this session, I want to sort of uncover a lot of myths around SEO and content. And primarily, these myths are basically essentially a foundation. So getting this right really helps you define your overall search marketing strategy. Myth one, SEO is a 2-month process. Let's do it now, let's do it quickly. So if I actually had a penny for every time a client asked me, okay, let's do SEO, let's do it for 2 months, let's do it for 6 weeks, let's do it for 3 months, and that's it. Let's just do an ROI on that, and then let's get around with the next thing. I'd probably be a millionaire today. It's not that easy. It is the same engine which drives PPC, but one thing to fundamentally understand between PPC and SEO is it's an ongoing process. And getting it right from the beginning becomes extremely important, and then investing in it every month is crucial. Because once you reach sustainability, so once you actually build sustainable SEO traffic, it's your long-term investment. This is actually a case study where we started with working with a leading mobile website company in the US back in 2011, around June of 2011. Within 2 months, we did double their SEO traffic. So it was phenomenal, and I'll actually want to complete the story at the end, but just sort of remember this slide where we're talking about sort of building sustainable SEO traffic, and actually investing in it makes a big difference. Myth two, if we are doing SEO, we need to do it very different from content for users. So again, this is something that you kind of see off and on. Okay, let's create SEO content and let's slap it on the website and let's drive SEO traffic. This doesn't work anymore. Here's an example of an auto insurance site which has gone a little crazy with the keyword insurance. This would probably help, again, a couple of years ago, but today it'll get you into a lot of trouble. So you'd probably be in the Google penalty box if you tried something like this. Just another example of where templatized content, again, can get you in a lot of trouble. So this is one site which is talking about flights from New York to Las Vegas. They've got a picture of an aeroplane, so they have some context there. And then they have like every keyword combination with hotels, Las Vegas and New York on the left well. This doesn't work anymore. And most importantly, what's wrong with this picture is your primary revenue driver, which is your call to action, is hidden on the right well. So even if you were ranking for this, you're probably not converting very well. Content with a purpose is reality. So actually having the right kind of content on your page, even if it's less, but provides value, creates website stickiness, becomes really important. Here's an example of Orbitz actually doing it right, where you probably can't read the content. The font is a little low, but the paragraph essentially talks about valuable information, like what's the parking going to be like at the airport in New York, and how do I get a cab? What are the number of direct flights that are actually going from Las Vegas to New York so that I can make that decision? Extremely valuable content across the board. Strong call to action. So once it starts to rank, you're actually converting very well. And you've got all your right SEO tags in place. So this is essentially how you'd probably want to look at designing content for your website, where you keep the user in mind, you add the right components of SEO, and you build on that. Again, the reason why bots and users are today not very different, because just creating a lot of spam content wouldn't do this. So I just pulled data around the last 30-day tweets of a couple of hashtags which have been in the news. So Nook, LinkedIn, and Airbnb. Nook is one that we work with. So we actually helped them launch Nook in UK. So now if you go to uk.nook.com, it's a completely separate website. It's apart from Barnes & Noble. And we work pretty closely with their social marketing as well as the PR agency in directing landing pages to the correct places on uk.nook, creating a lot of buzz about it. And when it was being released, we kind of synergized efforts between PR and social media, thereby creating more than, I think, about 45K tweets in a 30-day period. Another great example of leveraging social content SEO all in one is LinkedIn. So I'm not sure if a lot of you guys in the room receive recent emails would look something like this. You've been chosen in the top 1, 5, or 10% of LinkedIn users as you've hit 200 million users on LinkedIn. So this was one campaign which drew 22K tweets in a span of 30 days. And the reason why I think this was brilliant was they didn't spend $1. There was no giveaway. There was no tablets or freebies being given away. They basically tapped on self-love, vanity. So anyone who would see that, okay, I'm in the top 1%, maybe not spend too much time doing the calculation. 200 million or 1% is 2 million. So you're still in 1 in 2 million, which is not bad. But you want to spread that around. And this got a lot of tweets, a lot of shares, a lot of links back, did a lot of branding for them in a fairly easy way. One other case study. So this is an online fashion rental company based out of New York called Rent the Runway that we work with. We helped them launch what they call the Social Moments or Our Runway platform. What they did was they had people renting dresses from them, fashion dresses from them, and they sort of put their heads together and said, okay, everyone who rents from us actually uploads pictures, and it's lying somewhere in our repository. So why don't we actually create a separate user experience, add social into it, have people actually directly upload to the platform, which is renttherunway.com/ourrunway, and share that. And I would say about weeks after launching this, the Wall Street Journal, TechCrunch, LA Times, all of them caught on to it and were just talking about it, blogging about it, and linking back to this page, which again resulted in a lot of search traffic, organic search traffic. Lastly, around this segment about really creating valuable content, the traffic needs to be earned. So again, gone are the days where you probably want to hire someone from Odesk, create like 10, 15 articles, start propagating it across the web, and hope that actually gets you traffic. Even if you create one post in 1 month, doing that right becomes crucial. Here's an example of Shopify, which is an e-commerce platform, which we help them sort of create the blog, link it to their G+ accounts, and then have really quality content being posted by people within Shopify. And sure enough, for very highly competitive keywords, like best website software, their blog started to rank with the author profile. Myth 3, SEO is autonomous. So we have an SEO team, let's build that, let's hire 5-10 people, let's put them in the basement, and let's check in on them once in like 4 weeks. They don't need to talk to anybody. It's all separate. You could just gotta drive the traffic. It doesn't work that way. I would say SEO is probably one component which actually touches almost every department within a company, whether it's business development, whether it's content, whether it's social, at times even HR, finance, obviously. And lots of times, done right, you can actually build business cases where you get SEO done, but it actually helps the overall website. So here's one example of reducing your page speed or the time that users take to download a web page, which inherently increases your conversion rate. So this not only helps SEO because Google loves faster websites, so they'll spend more time on your website if it's fast, which basically helps them crawl a lot more pages. But at the same time, you're doing this not only for Google, you're doing it for users because a faster website is obviously great user experience and has a much better conversion rate. My best myth yet, SEO is dead. I have heard this for the last, I would say, 12 to 18 months with all the different updates that have come up. SEO is going away. Google Plus is in. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of that. Here's sort of the kind of story that I started right in the beginning, where we worked with a leading mobile website, invested in SEO over time. And today, what we did in the first 2 months was a drop in what the last month, which is January of 2013, in terms of SEO traffic. So what they did in the last 2 years was pretty much what they did in the last month alone, and this takes time. So I would say, setting up the expectations with all the stakeholders becomes extremely key, because if you say, I'm going to do this now for 1.5 months and show you results, you'll probably show something, but you'll be setting up the wrong expectations. So taking the time in building the right content, synergizing efforts with your PR and social media teams becomes extremely crucial. Let's stop believing these myths. So I'm going to now sum it up for everyone. SEO works best when it's built within the content strategy ecosystem. So here are a couple of tips of actually how to get started doing that. Work with your P&L owners, your stakeholders. Find out what's really important to them to really get started. So what are the products, what are the keywords that your stakeholders are actually cared about? Start building that out within your SEO and content strategy. Not only are you going to get a lot of buy-in, but it's probably doing it the right way, where you're going after the low-hanging fruit, which is essentially what you're selling. Know your analytics inside out. So I think this is where being a data geek becomes really important. You need to know what are your top landing pages, what are the keywords that are actually driving that today, what are your worst landing pages, and then figure out why is one better than the other. Look into your comparative linking data. So figure out where are my competitors actually getting links from? Why are they ranking or outranking me? Why are they driving more traffic than I am? Spend time actually analyzing not only your own website, but the competition, and then strategize what your overall content marketing plan would be. Lastly, and I mentioned that before, setting expectations with stakeholders. So this is something that actually I would say is super, super key. If there's one takeaway from this presentation, it would be this. Time and again, we are in sort of a hurry to get SEO up and running, start competing with our competitors who've been probably doing it for 12 or 18 months, and we set the wrong expectations. What happens is, when you don't get results in that short period of time, you give up. So setting up the right timelines on, this is how much time it's going to take, this is the overall strategy, and in 6 to 8 or 12 months is when I'm actually going to reap my benefits, is the best way to go about this.